Welcome to another video on math enhancement. I'm still your professor, Nadine Alex Bravo. So for today's review, we will be talking about fractions. Okay, so napakahalaga sa atin na we learn about fractions because there are particular formulas in our calculus na lahat sila lumalabas na, marami sa kanila lumalabas na fractions and you have to simplify them. So it's good that we're reviewing this today. Okay, so this presentation will tackle simplifying fractions. That's number one. Number two is adding and subtracting. So we'll just brush up on these things. Multiplication and division. And then lastly, complex fractions. Okay, so for this particular session, napakahalaga that you are well-versed with your laws of exponents and the operations on polynomials that we previously had. Also, yung mga special products natin and factoring, they are all very important, lalo na pagdating ng simplifying fractions, multiplication, and division. Okay, so let's move forward for our first topic. First topic is simplifying fractions. So, as by the definition, a fraction is a rational expression, okay, which is a quotient. So, quotient daw siya, pinag-divide, na dalawang algebraic expression or polynomials. We have two types of fractions depending on their degrees. The degrees of the numerator and the denominator. So, proper fraction ang tawag natin kung yung degree ng numerator ay mas mababa kaysa sa degree ng denominator. So, an example for that would be, okay, you have x plus 1 all over x squared minus 2x plus 3. So, x plus 1 is in the first degree, di ba? Highest exponent of x or the variable is 1. And then sa denominator, you have 2 as the highest exponent of the variable. So, 1 over 2, yung exponent natin, mas maliit yung nasa numerator, then proper fraction siya. Same goes with the second example, you have 2. So, kung constant yan, ibig sabihin you have x raised to 0 all over x plus 5, where x is raised to 1. So, mas mataas pa rin yung denominator natin. And then you have x squared minus 1 all over x cubed minus x plus 5, so 2 and 3. And then you have x minus 1 all over x cubed plus 1. So you have 1 and 3. So these are all proper fractions. Improper fraction naman siya kung yung degree daw ng polynomial in the numerator is greater than or equal to, nag-equal sila, to the degree of the polynomial in the denominator. So it's either equal or greater than yung numerator kaysa sa denominator. So anong nangyari dito? You have 2 as the degree of the polynomial in the numerator and then 1 in the denominator. So, improper fraction ito. Itong dalawang to, they have equal degrees because they both contains just x as the highest, the variable with the highest exponent. And then you have x cubed, diba? And then in the denominator, you have x squared, so 3 over 2. And then you have, ito equal din. Parehas x squared, parehas 2 yung degree ng polynomial sa numerator and denominator. And the same goes for the last example. Parehas 1 yung exponent ng x natin. Okay? Why is it important for us to understand alin ang proper at alin ang improper fraction? Number one, mainly because it's easier to identify na kailangan pang isimplify yung isang fraction, lalo na kung nakita mo na improper fraction siya. Ibig sabihin, an improper fraction could lead to further simplification by division. Okay? Another one is, pagdating niya ng differential calculus, meron tayong derivatives of quotient. Okay? So, derivatives of quotient po, or in other formulas, gumagamit tayo ng chain rule. Diba? Pag nagdi-differentiate tayo. Ngayon, one technique on the use of chain rule or kung magdi-divide ka is if you understand kung proper fraction ba or improper fraction ba yung given sa'yo. Most likely, kapag proper yung fraction na given, we do chain rule on that kasi normally it would lead to derivatives of logarithm or derivatives leading to logarithmic expression. Okay? Pero kung improper naman yung fraction mo, normally, ang first step lagi natin sa calculus dyan, i-divide muna. Lagi tayong hihingan na kapag improper yung fraction, you divide it first to simplify it. Kasi yung last term na matitira or yung remainder kumbaga, nung ating division, kasi di ba kapag fractions, division yan, quotient, yung matitirang term mo or yung remainder mo, that usually leads to a logarithmic term. Or kapag dinifferentiate mo siya, magpo-form siya ng du over u, yun ay magli-lead to an answer which is logarithmic. ln. Okay? So, it's very helpful kapag naiintindihan nyo or nare-recall nyo pa kung alin ang proper at improper fraction sa atin. Okay? So, how do we simplify these fractions? So, a fraction daw is deemed to be simplified if there no exists a common factor between the numerator and the denominator except a positive and a negative one. So, kung yung numerator mo at denominator mo, papasok yung yung understanding natin on factoring. Kung yung numerator at denominator mo, wala nang parehas na factor sa kanila, maliban sa positive 1 or negative 1, then it is considered in its simplest form or it is already simplified. Pero kung hindi, ibig sabihin, meron kang common factor sa numerator at denominator, may nag-a-appear na parehas na factor doon sa taas at baba ng fraction mo, then pwede tayo mag-simplify by applying division property of a set of real numbers. So by applying division of polynomials, okay, or division property of set of real numbers, pwede ngayon natin i-simplify yung ating fractions. Kaya kailangan, very well versed, kagaya ng sabi ko, gamay na gamay nyo na yung inyong factoring and special products. That's one. Okay? And then also, marunong mag-divide ng polynomials. Kasi, basically, fractions is division nga, sabi ko nga kanina. So, kailangan maalam kayo mag-divide. Okay? So, sabi dito, if you have AC all over BC, ibig sabihin, makikita mo dito that in the numerator, you have A and C as factors, and then in the denominator, you have B and C as factors. So, in these factors, common si C, di ba? C appears to be in the numerator and in the denominator, parehas yan. And C is multiplied to the other terms. Naka-multiply si C, hindi siya naka-add, hindi siya naka-subtract. Okay? Ibig sabihin, pwede nating i-cancel yan since it's common. And then you'll be left with A over B. Provided that B should not be equal to 0 and C should not be equal to 0. Thus, B and C, kapag pinag-multiply mo siya or the denominator of the fraction that you have is not equivalent to 0 so as not to cause an undefined function or fraction. Okay? So, the expression x minus y all over x minus y, hindi mo pwedeng i-cancel to. Ito yung common errors na lagi kong nakikita sa mga estudyante when I was teaching differential calculus. Pag nakakakita sila ng kamukha si denominator, kinakancel na nila agad. Kahit na ang katabi naman ng expression is positive or negative sign or addition or subtraction. Hindi mo pwedeng gawin yung cancellation kung yung term na ika-cancel mo, may katabi siyang addition or subtraction. Or pwede mo lang siyang i-cancel if the term you want to cancel is actually multiplied. Nakaparenthesis siya, nakamultiply siya dun sa tirang terms. Tapos ganun din yung nasa ilalim, nakamultiply din sa itirang terms. Saka mo pa lang siya pwedeng i-cancel. Pero if it's not multiplied, instead it's added or subtracted, hindi mo siya pwede basta-basta i-cancel. Pwede lang tayo mag-cancel if the term you are canceling is actually factored out from the remaining terms or from the original polynomial in either the numerator or the denominator. Kasi baka mamaya, makakita ko ng solution sa inyo, kinancel nyo to, tapos matitira negative, kinancel mo na din. Ay, okay, 1 nga naman yun. 1 pa rin yun. Okay, yung iba pa, pag nagka-cancel, ginagawang 0 yung sagot. Okay, so, ang idea dito is we are dividing. Okay, so, x minus y is similar to x minus y, so which means that's equivalent to 1. And then you have here x minus y all over y minus x, which is equivalent to negative 1. How did this happen? Paano to nangyari? Pwede mong iparehas yung denominator sa numerator if you can factor out a negative 1 in the denominator. So, mangyayari dito, you have x minus y all over. If I factor out negative 1 in the denominator, that would be negative of, you'll get negative y, magiging negative na to, and then negative x will be positive x na. And if you arrange that, that would be x minus y all over the negative of, di ba pwede naman natin tong change position kasi commutative naman si addition. So, pwede mong unahin yung positive x and then followed by negative y. And in that case, you have there x minus y all over x minus y, which will be cancelled. But you'll be left with the negative sign or simply a negative 1. So, in both cases, yung dalawang yan, they're already in their simplest form. So long as there are no common factors appearing on both numerator and denominator, then therefore, the fraction is already simplified. Okay? So let's have 11 examples for the simplifying of fractions. So let's get our notes again. Okay? So, let me write in this notes, simplifying fractions. So let me change my colors lang. Okay, so let me write here, simplifying, sorry. Kasi I intend to give you a copy of this PDF that I'm doing. Okay, so yan. Kaya inaayos ko yung notes na ginagawa ko para sa inyo. So we have simplifying, I'll extract this as PDF. Simplifying fractions. Okay, so let's start with the first example. Okay, the first example is x squared minus 4 all over 2x minus 4. So, obviously, the numerator is a difference of squares. Okay? And then, in the denominator, you have a common factor there. So, for a difference of squares, we simply take the square root, diba? So, you'll get x plus 2, square root of 4. Multiply to the same binomial, pero this time, minus naman siya. And then, divide this by the denominator whose common factor is 2. So, if I factor out 2 from the denominator, I will have 2x. Okay, I will have 2x divided by 2. That will leave me with just x minus 4 divided 2, di ba? 4 divided by 2, that will leave me with just 2. So, as you can see, parang you have several terms in the numerator that are multiplied to each other, and then 2 terms in the denominator that are multiplied to each other then. So, in that case, pwede na tayong mag-cancel. Okay? So, I can now cancel what? X minus 2 and x minus 2. So, it appears on both numerator and denominator. And then, therefore, I'll be left with just x plus 2 all over 2. We can write this as 1/2 of x plus 2. Right? Okay, multiplying 1 times x plus 2 all over 2. Kasi I experienced students before in calculus na kapag tinanong mo kung parehas ba to at ito, sinasabi nila na magkaiba. Parehas lang po yan, ha? Okay? Nilabas lang natin yung constant, which is a fraction. In this particular expression, naging ganito lang itsura niya. Okay? Next, let's proceed with number 2. You have there 2x plus 4y all over x squared plus 2xy. Okay? So, obviously, in the numerator, common si 2. So, I'll factor that out. I'll be having that as x plus 2y. Diba? I-divide nyo lang. 2x divide 2. So, you get x. 4y divide 2. So, you get 2y. Okay? Divide that by, so I have a common factor then in the denominator, which is x. And that would be x squared divide x is x plus 2xy divide x, you get 2y. So, here, we can see that x plus 2y is common, and then our final answer will be 2 over x. Okay? Let's proceed to the third example. Diba? Madali lang. If you are very, very familiar with your factoring, napakadali lang mag-simplify ng fractions. Okay? So, the next example is 2x squared minus 3x plus 1 all over 2x squared plus x minus 1. So, let's try this as, kasi mahirap pag magbabox pa tayo, masyadong madaming trabaho yun. So, the trial and error ka na lang to as 2x and x. So, that gives me 2x squared. Okay. What should I multiply? I should have a product of positive 1. Okay. Maybe negative 1, negative 1. Para magkaroon ako ng negative 3 na sum. Kasi ito magiging negative 2x saka negative x. So, that's correct. Okay. Pero kung ayaw nyo yan, ganun ulit. Pwede kayong kumuha ng calculator and then try it in your calculator as mode equations. Doon tayo sa polynomial of second degree. Kukunin natin yung roots niya. So, you have 2 equals negative 3. Kunin mo lang ito. Diba yung coefficients? Positive 1 and then press equals. Okay, so at first you have 1/2. So, if x is equivalent to dito na. If x is equivalent to 1/2, by simplifying this and multiplying this or multiplying both sides by 2, you'll get that as 2x equal to 1. And then if you transpose 1 to the left side, you'll get that as 2x minus 1, which is this factor. Okay? And then the other one is 1. So that's x equal to 1. Transposing this, you'll get x minus 1, which is the other factor that we have here. Okay? Doing that for the denominator as well, pwede tayo mag-calculator na lang doon. You have 2, 1, negative 1. So, that gives us yun. X equal to negative 1. So, you transpose that. That would be x plus 1. And then the other one is 1/2 ulit. So, ganun ulit. You'll get 2x minus 1 ulit as another factor. And then, we can now cancel kasi kita mo dito na common si 2x minus 1. Diba? Which means our final answer for number 3 will be x minus 1 all over x plus 1 po. Okay? Next, let's proceed to number 4. So, for number 4, x squared minus 1 all over x squared minus x. So, x squared minus 1 is a difference of squares. You will have that as x plus 1 and x minus 1. And in the denominator, you have x as common. So, if you factor out x as a common factor, you will get there x minus 1. And with x minus 1 appearing on both numerator and denominator, we cancel that out. And that will result to an answer which is x plus 1 all over x. Okay, let's proceed to number 5. Number 5, you have x minus x cubed all over x minus 1. So, common si x sa numerator, I'll factor that out. I will get x divide x as 1 minus x cubed. Divide x, that's x squared. So, let me write here x squared all over. I do not have anything to factor in the denominator, so I'll leave it as is. And then, you can notice you have a difference of squares dito. So, i-factor pa rin natin yun further as in the instructions to us with factoring, diba, last video. So, you'll have here 1 plus x and 1 minus x all over x minus 1. So, as you can see in the theorem I showed you previously, diba, kapag nagpalit lang yung position ng dalawang terms in the binomial, ibig sabihin negative 1 yan. So, in short, this is simply the negative of x times 1 plus x. Okay? If you want me to elaborate that further, that means, para mapagparehas ko to ng itsura, I have to factor out negative 1 either dito o kaya dito, maalin sa dalawa. So, let me do that in the denominator na lang. I will have here 1 plus x and then 1 minus x. And then in the denominator, I'll try to factor out negative 1. So, that would be x divide negative 1. I will get negative x, and negative 1 divide negative 1, that's positive 1. In that case, kagaya ng ginawa natin kanina, I'll just rearrange this para mauna yung positive term. So, that will lead me to x multiplied by 1 plus x times 1 minus x all over the negative of 1 minus x. So, that leads me to cancellation of 1 minus x. And you will have here, x times 1 plus x divided by negative 1. Or simply, the negative of x times 1 plus x. So, ito yung sagot natin. Okay? Let's proceed to number 6. Okay, you have there x squared minus x minus 6 divided by x squared minus 5x plus 6. So, we have to think of factors of 6 that will give us a sum of negative 1. And that's obviously negative 3 and positive 2, diba? Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. All over, we'll do the same thing in the denominator. So, we'll have that as x and x. So, factors of 6, positive 6, that gives us negative 5 as a sum. That would be negative 3 and negative 2. So, here, we can now factor x minus 3. Or we can now cancel x minus 3 because it's common. And that will lead us to x plus 2 all over x minus 2 as an answer. Baka mamaya gawin nyo to negative 1 ha, just because you have similar terms. Diba? Okay? That's not negative 1. Ito yung final answer natin. Okay? Number 7. Okay? You have the negative of x squared minus 1 all over 1 minus x to the 4th. Okay? So, sa numerator, common si negative 1. So, I'll factor that out first. And that will lead me to x squared plus 1. Okay? Which is already a prime factor. Ito. Hindi na natin siya pwedeng i-factor further pa. Pero the denominator is a difference of squares. So, pwede natin i-factor yun. I have here 1 minus the square root of x to the 4th is x squared. And then I will have 1 plus x squared. Okay. And obviously, I have here 1 plus x squared in the numerator and in the denominator. So, that means I can cancel that out. Okay. And that will result in an answer which is the negative 1 over 1 minus x squared. Actually, ang fraction po, meron siyang tatlong sign. Ano nga? Your fractions will have signs in the numerator. So, let's say you have a over b. Okay? Kapag ang iyong numerator ay negative, that's equivalent to an a over b with a negative sign in the denominator. And that means that's equal to a negative sign in the middle of the fraction bar, negative of a over b. All these three are similar to each other. Naiiba lang ng pwesto yung negative sign, pero pare-parehas po yan. Pero note, yung negative sign yun, ibig sabihin, you're taking the negative of the whole polynomial in the numerator, in the denominator. Okay? Hindi isang term lang ha, the whole polynomial is multiplied to a negative 1. Or there is a negative 1 factored both in the numerator and in the denominator. So in that case, kung gusto mong maging positive ang sagot natin dito, kasi you have a negative 1 here, we can make that positive. Ibig sabihin, ibababa mo yung negative sign. So you'll get that as positive 1 all over. Ibababa ko yung negative sign, it will be multiplied to everything in the denominator. So times, I'll have a parenthesis, 1 minus x squared. In that case, I can simplify this as simply 1 all over. By distributing the negative sign, you'll get negative 1 plus x squared. And we can rearrange the position of these two terms so that we'll have the positive term first as the leading term. And that will give you 1 all over x squared minus 1. Depending on the instruction, okay, pwede naman natin i-factor further ito for it to be fully simplified. Pero pwedeng ito na yung sagot natin eh. Kasi when we say simplify the fractions, it's simply asking us to remove the common factors in the numerator and denominator. But you're not actually required to completely factor out all the remaining terms. So ito, hindi mo na kailangan i-factor siya. Okay na yan as an answer. Okay? Let's proceed to number 8. Let's have number 8. Okay, so for number 8, you have here x raised to 2n plus 1 minus xy raised to 2n all over x raised to n plus y raised to n. So obviously, there is an x existing on both terms in the numerator. Kasi you have your x raised to 2n plus 1. Diba, ito ay equal sa x raised to 2n times x. So meron kang x term. Na yung x term na yun, it also appears in the next term. So ibig sabihin, pwede kong i-factor out ito, si x, and that will leave me with x raised to 2n na lamang. Diba? Kasi kapag dinivide mo, x raised to 2n plus 1, ito, divided by x, it means babawasan mo ng isa yung exponent ng x raised to 2n plus 1 mo. So ito na yung matitira sa atin. Minus, you will have x raised to, y raised to 2n all over x raised to n plus y raised to n. We cannot cancel this. They are not similar yet. The polynomials are not the same. Pero you can see here na since yung exponent ni x dito at ni y are both multiples of 2. Diba? Kasi naka 2n, 2n yan. Ibig sabihin, difference of squares yan. So, pwede nating i-factor pa yan further. That will lead us to x raised to n. Diba? Pag nag-square root tayo, di-divide mo lang by 2 yung exponent. So, pag na-divide mo ng 2 yung exponent, makancel lang 2, you'll get x raised to n lamang. Minus y raised to n, same will happen in the next term. All over, multiplied by, so, difference of squares to. So, same binomial, pero this time, sum naman. Okay? All over, you have x raised to n plus y raised to n. And there you have it. X raised to n plus y raised to n is common on both sides. So, we cancel this, and then we get this as our final answer. Your final answer is x raised to, multiplied by x raised to n minus y raised to n. Okay? So, kapag yung exponents mo naging variable, huwag masyadong mai-intimidate ha. Isipin pa rin yung principles ng factoring, ng laws of exponents, para hindi ka masyadong nervyosin. Okay? It comes with practice po. Okay? Number 9. We have there 6x raised to 3n, y raised to n, plus 6x raised to 2n, y raised to n, all over x raised to 2n minus 1. So, kapag nagpa-factor tayo, diba, sabi ko before, if you are factoring a variable with an exponent, always choose, kung positive ang exponents mo, ang ipa-factor mo dyan, is the term with the least exponent. So, in the numerator, we're going to factor 6 is common, the constant. And in terms of x, I'm going to factor out raised to 2n kasi mas maliit siya than 3n. And then, y raised to n is also common. So, if we do that, we will have ito divided by this, cancel si 6, cancel si y raised to n, may matitirang x raised to n, di ba? So, I'm gonna write here, x raised to n na lamang. Plus, okay, this is similar, dividing by itself, which means you have 1. All over, I have in the denominator, x raised to 2n minus 1. Wherein, if you inspect that, hindi mo siya mapafactor or makakancel with x raised to n plus 1. But since the exponent of x is a multiple of 2, we will assume, or this is indeed a difference of squares. So, magsasquare tayo. So, magsasum and difference tayo, that would be x raised to n plus 1. Square root of 1 is 1 pa rin. And then you get x raised to n minus 1. And there appears that this is common on both sides. So, we cancel that out. Okay? And then, ito na yung sagot natin, yung matitirang terms natin. So, you have 6x raised to 2n, y raised to n, all over x raised to n minus 1. Okay? Tip, kasi pagdating ng calculus, ang hirap-hirap mag-factoring dun kasi ang dami-daming terms, ang dami-daming variables. So, let me give you just several tips, lalo na pag-factoring or factoring out the common factor. Factored out. Okay. Bigay tayong example. Halimbawa, meron kang positive exponent. So, if you have x cubed plus x squared, ang pipiliin mo dito mas maliit. Okay. Choose the variable with the lesser exponent. So, pag nag-factor ka dito, choose x squared. And then, you'll have x plus 1. Okay. Paano kung negative? Halimbawa, x cubed plus x raised to negative 2. What do we factor out? Okay. In this case, you're going to factor out the negative term. Okay. And that is x raised to negative 2. Okay. Because it will leave the remaining term still positive and exponent. Kasi, halimbawa, dinivide ko x cubed, di ba ito? Divided by x raised to negative 2. That would be x raised to 3 minus negative 2. So, magiging x raised to 5 yung sagot natin. Diba? It will leave the remaining terms still in a positive exponent. So, parang ang nilabas lang natin, the variable with the negative exponent. And then, plus 1. So, yun. Diba? Okay. Paano kung parehas negative? Halimbawa, ang example ay x raised to negative, bablat. Halimbawa, you have x raised to negative 3 plus x raised to negative 2. Which one to cancel? The variable with the least exponent. In terms of the number line, ha? Kasi di ba pag negative numbers, malaki yung digit, pero lesser yung value niya. So, yun yung pipiliin natin. We are going to choose x raised to negative 3 kasi mas maliit yan sa number line than negative 2. So, why? Kasi kapag finactor out mo si negative 3, it will leave the remaining terms positive in exponent uli. Ang idea kasi dito is, when you factor out, always choose a term that will make the remaining terms, okay, dun sa finactor mo, be positive in their exponents. Or as much as possible, whole number sila. Kasi minsan meron tayong mga terms na fractions yung exponent nila, di ba? Okay. So, in this case, ang mangyayari dyan is you have x raised to negative 3 divide x raised to negative 3. Obviously, that would be positive 1. Plus, if you have x raised to negative 2 all over x raised to negative 3, that will come as x raised to negative 2 minus negative 3. And that's negative 2 plus 3, so you'll get positive x raised to 1. So, magiging positive x na lang to. So, as you can see, natanggal natin dun sa polynomial yung negative exponent, na-factor out natin siya. Okay? Yan. So, yun yung technique kapag nag-factor kayo. Okay. Next, let's proceed to number 10. Yung exponents with, yung terms with exponents that are fractions, saka natin yan aralin kapag nag-radicals tayo. Kasi yung radical expressions natin yung fractions na exponent eh. Okay? Number 10, you have 4x minus 2x squared all over 4 minus x squared. So, in the numerator, common si 2x. I'll factor that out. You'll get 4x divide 2x, that's positive 2. Minus, you have 2x squared divide 2x, that's positive x. Okay. Naka-minus kasi ako eh. Okay. Over 4 minus x squared is a difference of squares. So, I'll have that as 2 minus x and then 2 plus x. Which shows, this is common and I'll factor it out. Okay? And our final answer will be 2x all over 2 plus x. Ha? Huwag magka-cancel. Hindi yan pwedeng i-cancel. Kasi ito ay 2 terms. Si 2, it's not factored from all of the terms in the denominator. So, hindi mo siya pwedeng i-cancel with 2 in the numerator. Okay? Magkakalimutan nyo na. Okay. Number 11. I think this is the last one. So, you have here 27, sorry. You have here 27x cubed minus 8y cubed. This is difference of cubes, di ba? This is difference of cubes. All over, you have 9x squared minus 4y squared. Okay? So, hugutin lang natin yung knowledge natin ng special product or factoring difference of cubes. So, that would be taking the cube root of this. So, that would be 3x, di ba? Minus, copy the same sign. Cube root ng second term. So, that's 2y. Okay? And then, multiplying this binomial by, dito na tayo titingin. Dito na. Square nito, product nitong dalawa, square nito. Okay? So, that will lead us to 9x squared. Pag ito ay minus, plus yung second term. Plus, product nilang dalawa. So, that's 6xy. So, plus 6xy. Okay? Plus, kasi negative 2y times negative 2y. So, you get positive 4y squared. All over, in the denominator, you have difference of squares naman. So, that would be 3x minus 4y. 3x minus 2y. All over 3x plus 2y. Okay? So, that means I can cancel out 3x minus 2y. And I'll be left with this as my answer. So, magiging sagot ko na dito is 9x squared plus 6xy plus 4y squared all over 3x plus 2y. This is already in its simplest form because this one, it's non-factorable. This is already a prime factor. Okay? And that gives you simplifying fractions. So, if we now know how to simplify our fractions, then pwede na tayo mag-proceed with the different operations, basic operations that we can do with our fraction. And to start that, we have addition and subtraction. So, of course, kagaya ng polynomials, kapag nag-add or subtract tayo ng fractions, kailangan similar sila. So, sa polynomials, nasasabi natin na similar ang polynomials if they have the same set of literal coefficient, diba? Then we can operate addition and subtraction on them. Pero, kapag fractions po ang pinag-uusapan, ang tinitingnan po natin dyan is the denominator. If the fractions have the same denominator, ibig sabihin, we simply add their numerator. So, halimbawa, okay, ano bang color yung ginawa kong heading dito? Okay, orange. Okay, so, halimbawa, doon tayo sa addition and subtraction. So, if for example, you have 2x over 4 plus 3x over 4. Similar fractions yan because you have the same denominator 4. So, gagawin mo lang is simply copy 4 and then add or subtract kung ano man yung operation na given sa numerator, the terms. So, you have 2x plus 3x, edi 5x. Ito yun yung sagot natin. Ganun lang siya kasimple. Pero, kapag po dissimilar yung fraction natin, ibig sabihin, magkaiba yung denominator niya. Okay? Kailangan pa natin gumawa or kumuha ng LCD. Okay? Kukunin natin least common denominator nila. And then proceed with transforming the fractions into the same denominator. And then proceeding with, yan, our solution with proper fraction. Kasi naging proper fraction na siya. Okay? So, let me go straight to the illustrations or the examples para mas maintindihan natin. Kasi mahirap pa mag-variable pa ako na kung ano-ano, di ba? So, let's just magnify this. Okay, let's start with number 1. Okay, number 1 given is you have negative 1 all over x minus 1 minus 1. So, obviously, you have two terms here, itong dalawang to. Pero, magkaiba sila ng denominator. Ito ang denominator niya, although it's not written, it's positive 1. So, if their denominator are different, then, we take their least common denominator. And we do that by creating a very long fraction bar. And then, most likely, when we solve for LCDs, we simply multiply the denominators of the fractions. Pero, if there are common terms in both fractions given, in both denominators given, we simply take out every unique factor, and then we take that product, and then that would be our LCD. So, I think I have examples here. Okay. Para ma-elaborate ko yun. Pero for this case, we simply multiply their denominator, which is x minus 1, tsaka positive 1. Diba? So, in short, you just have x minus 1 as your least common denominator. And then, the next step to do is, itong least common denominator na to, i-divide natin dyan yung denominator ng first term. So, parang nangyayari dyan, you have x minus 1 divided by x minus 1 ulit. So, that's positive 1. Pag nakuha mo yung quotient, imumultiply mo yung sagot dun sa numerator. So, you have positive 1 times negative 1, which means you still get negative 1 here. Or, sa madalit sabi, kinopya lang natin to. Kasi nga, same lang naman sila ng denominator. So, mangyayari dyan, makakopy lang. So, yung changes dun mangyayari sa second term. Kasi, so, let's write their minus. So, let me write minus. And every time you're proceeded with minus, required that you write a parenthesis para maiwasan natin yung errors. Okay? Lalo na sa distribution of the negative sign. So, every time minus yung operation, dapat palaging may parenthesis. Okay? We have x minus 1. So, let me write that as x minus 1 divided by yung denominator nito, which is 1. Okay? Which means I will get that as x minus 1. So, yung sagot ko, I will multiply this to the numerator, which is positive 1. So, I'll get x minus 1 pa rin. So, let me write here x minus 1. Okay? In that case, yan. Meron ka ng common denominator na x minus 1. And then, you can simplify the numerator by proceeding with adding or subtracting polynomials. Diba? So, mangyayari dito, if you distribute this, okay, that will make negative 1 positive. So, magka-cancel out lang to. Negative 1 plus 1. But you have negative x in the numerator. Okay? So, this is our answer. But then again, if you do not want the negative sign, so kagaya na ginawa natin kanina, if you want this removed and make your answer positive, ibig sabihin, you have to distribute this in the denominator and that will, that will commutate, diba? Magiging positive 1 minus x na to. Okay, I'm sure you now know that because I've done that distribution with 2 illustrations already. Okay, let's do number 2. So, you have here 6x all over x squared minus 4 minus 2 all over x minus 2 minus 2 all over x plus 2. Okay? If you find it hard to identify the LCD, kasi kapag hindi mo nakuha yung least, that will worsen your solution. There's a possibility na makuha mo yung tamang sagot. Ang problema lang is, kapag hindi least yung common denominator mo or medyo malaki siya, that will create very huge multiplications or divisions and very huge terms in the numerator. So, in short, the solution or parang yung magiging solution or yung process mo medyo mas mahaba pa. Okay? So, kung hindi ka pa ganun ka-familiar with taking the LCD, lalo na kung polynomials yung pag nag-uusapan natin, ang pwede mong gawin ay, ilista mo muna yung mga denominators na meron tayo. So, obviously, itong tatlong fraction na to, they all have different denominators. What you can do with that is, list down all the denominators as x squared minus 4. I have x minus 2. The other one is x plus 2. And then, factor them out. Factor each of them. So, yung x squared minus 4 ko, this is a difference of squares. So, that would be x plus 2 tsaka x minus 2. Ang second denominator ko is already a prime factor. It's x minus 2. So, hinilera ko lang sa kaparehas. And then, the next denominator is x plus 2. So, which is already a prime factor. So, tatapat ko lang siya dun sa kaparehas niya. And then, the next thing you'll do is, get one of each unique factor. Kasi, eto, halimbawa, since parehas sila, ibig sabihin, may factor ka na x plus 2. Eto, parehas din sila. So, ibig sabihin, meron akong isang factor na x minus 2. Kung halimbawa nagkaroon ng x dito, ibig sabihin, may x pa dito. Kasi may isa ka pang unique na factor. Okay, bawat naiibang factor, isusulat mo and you will multiply them to each other. And if you do that, that would be our LCD. So let me remove x here, yung example na ginawa ko. Okay, which shows that, yan, ang LCD natin in this particular example is actually this, which is actually this one. Okay, minsan, mas madali mag-solve ng addition, subtraction, or pag-LCD kapag ang nilalagay mo sa denominator is the factored form. Kasi kapag nag-divide ka with the other terms, madali mo ma-identify yung magiging quotient. Ano? Kasi di ba nag-divide tayo? So, let's continue this. Saan ba? Okay, let me continue this here. So, that means, my denominator is actually, okay, x plus 2 tsaka x minus 2. The next thing to do is have this divided by this, which is similar, which is itself. So, which means, kukupihin lang natin yung numerator as 6x. And then, I will have here minus, that calls for my parentheses, di ba? Okay. Next, ito yung sinasabi ko, mas madali kapag factored yung denominator. Kasi, if this is factored, kapag dinivide mo siya by this, kita mo na agad ko alin na makakancel eh, di ba? You have x plus 2, all over x minus 2, you're going to divide that by x minus 2 because of this. And you can see there that this is cancelled. So, you'll get x plus 2. Okay, which will be multiplied to the term in the numerator. So, I will have my answer as 2 times x plus 2. So, let me replace this by a bracket. Let me replace that as a bracket. So, x plus 2. And then, I still have minus bracket ulit, just to be sure. So, you'll have here this divided by x plus 2. So, you'll get x minus 2 times 2. So, you'll have that as 2 times x minus 2. And then, proceed with expansion and then distribution of the negative sign. And then, proceed with the operation of addition or subtraction. So, that gives me 6x, okay, minus 2x, minus 4, minus 2x, plus 4, right? Okay, if you distribute this, so that's negative 2, distribute 2, all the terms in the binomial. So, negative 2. So, this will be our answer. And then, divide that by x plus 2, x minus 2. Then, I'll simplify the numerator. That would be 6x minus 2x minus 2x. So, 2x na lang. Okay. And then, we'll have negative 4, positive 4 cancelled. Okay. Divide that by, since wala naman akong mapa-factor dito, pwede mo nang ibalik yung denominator dun sa expanded form niya na x squared minus 4. Or, wala namang problema kung ang sagot mo ay naka-factored form. Okay lang din yun. So, that's our answer for number 2. Okay? Number 3. Okay? We have here 2x minus 1 all over x squared, x minus 1 squared, minus, have 2 all over x squared minus 1, and x minus 1. So, if I take the LCD of this, ililista ulit natin siya. So, my denominators are x squared, x minus 1 squared, and x squared minus 1 times x minus 1. So, that gives me, I have x minus 1, and x minus 1. Okay, pinaprime factor ko lang siya. And then, I have x plus 1, diba? Kasi difference of squares to. So, let me write it here, x minus 1, x plus 1 times x minus 1, diba? Times, may isa ka pang x minus 1 dito. So, pinagtapat-tapat ko na agad yung magkakaparehas para madali. So, ano yung mga unique factors natin? You have isang x, meron kang isa pang x, and then you have isang x minus 1, and then you have another x minus 1, okay? And then you have x plus 1. So, this product will be our LCD for this given. So, if we are going to simplify this, that would be equivalent to, let me get that's x squared na lang. Hindi ko na lang i-expand x minus 1, and then x plus 1. Okay? So, having this, i-divide ko ngayon ito. So, mangyayari dyan, you have this numerator divided by x squared, divided by x squared times x minus 1 squared. And that means this will be cancelled along with x minus 1 na isa at isa pang x minus 1. So, I'll be left with x plus 1. Okay? That will be multiplied to the numerator. Which means you have 2x minus 1 times x plus 1. Okay? Minus, this one, minus, which calls for a parenthesis. So, pwedeng isulat mo na agad yung numerator eh. 2, multiplied 2. So, i-divide ko naman ito, nito. Diba? So, I'll have x squared, etc. divided by x squared minus 1 times x minus 1, which obviously shows that yung x squared minus 1 mo, yun yung difference of squares natin. So, yun yung sum and difference. Cancel to. And then, you'll get x minus 1 cancelled also, which means you'll be left with x squared, which will be multiplied to the numerator, which is 2. So, you'll have this as 2x squared. Okay. After that, you have to expand the numerator. So, that would be 2x squared, diba? Positive 2x, negative x, negative 1, okay, minus 2x squared. Which means, this will be cancelled, diba? And then we can simplify 2x minus x. Okay, all over, let me write all over, okay, x squared times x minus 1 times x minus 1 times x plus 1. Okay, if we simplify the numerator, that will lead to an x minus 1, okay, all over x squared times x minus 1 times x minus 1 times x plus 1, which shows that we can cancel this, diba? And that will lead to an answer which is 1, kasi na-cancel, huwag yung gagawing 0 ha, all over x squared times x minus 1 times x plus 1, which is actually equivalent to 1 all over x squared times x squared minus 1. If you expand the sum and difference, it will become a difference of squares. Okay, so this will be our answer. That's the simplest form of that subtraction. Diba, subtraction yan. Okay, let's proceed to number 4, our last example for addition and subtraction. So here you have x all over x minus 2 minus 1 minus x to the 4th all over 8x minus x to the 4th minus x squared all over x squared minus 2x. So kagaya ng ginawa natin kanina, I'm going to list down our denominators so that we can take it their prime factors. So you have x minus 2, I have positive 1. I have 8x minus x to the 4th. Okay, and then I also have x squared minus 2x. So, x minus 2 is already prime. Okay. 1 is already prime. Okay. With 8x minus x to the 4th, common si x. So, let me factor that out first. Or let me say, negative x na lang ifa-factor ko para mag-positive yung higher degree. Wala lang. So, that would be x cubed minus 8. Diba? Which is very helpful kasi, as you can see, this is difference of cubes. Pag finactor natin siya, lalabas na x minus 2 yung factor niya, which is similar to this. So, yun ang gawin natin. So, you have negative x, okay, times x minus 2 times x squared plus 2x plus 4, okay? And then, you have this as its term. So, pwede kong isulat dito na you have x minus 2, okay? Then you have x squared plus 2x plus 4. Okay? And then you also have negative x. So let me write there. Let me just write negative 1 and x. Okay, negative 1 and x. Or negative x, kayong bahala. Ay, sorry. Ito pala ay sa 8x minus x to the 4th. So let me move this. Here. Ako, naiwan yung x. Naku, iniiwan yung mga x. Na pala. Okay. And then, of course, yung denominator mo na 1, 1 pa rin yun, di ba? So, napasama pala. Ano ba? Okay, let me erase this. And then, I'll transfer that here. Okay? For the next, or the last denominator, you have x squared minus 2x. Obviously, x is common. And then, you'll get x minus 2. So, let me list that down as x. Okay, tsaka x minus 2. Which means our LCD, hindi kasha. Let me give space ulit. Okay. Nakagip. Okay. Yan. Okay. Which means our LCD will be, okay, a positive 1 and a negative 1. So we got negative. An x minus 2. An x squared plus 2x plus 4. And an x. Which shows that this product is actually this one. Which is this. So, ang denominator pala natin, si 8x minus x to the fourth. Ano? But I'm not gonna write that as 8x minus x to the fourth kasi mas preferred nga natin yung factored form para madali tayo makapag-divide later. Continuing our solution, our common denominator will be negative of x, unahin ko na yung lower degree, x minus 2, and x squared plus 2x plus 4. Okay? I'm going to divide this by this. So, this will be divided by x minus 2. So, maka-cancel to. So, yung matitira mong terms, i-multiply natin dito. Which means you will get an x multiplied to a negative x multiplied to, so let me put a bracket on that. A negative x multiplied to the trinomial, x squared plus 2x plus 4. Okay? Next is, you have this divided by 1 times 1. So, mauulit lang yung denominator natin. So, do not forget this is minus. That would be minus the quantity. Okay, let me copy the given. Given, negative x, or the denominator. Okay, and then, let's proceed to the, what? The third fraction. So, the third fraction is itself, diba? Kasi, same denominator to eh. Ito yung expanded form niya eh. So, ibig sabihin, kokopyahin lang natin to, which means you'll have a negative x to the fourth, okay, minus, okay, this denominator to be divided by this, diba? Which is factored as this one. So, I'm going to divide this by x times x minus 2, which means x will be cancelled, x minus 2 is cancelled. I'll be left with the negative sign multiplied to the trinomial, multiplied to the numerator. So, you have a bracket, the numerator which is x squared, okay, to be multiplied to the negative of x squared plus 2x plus 4. Okay. So, dapat braces to pala. Diba? Okay. O, let's expand the numerator para ma-simplify natin to. So, we have x, negative x squared, actually. You have negative x squared that will be distributed to this trinomial. So, that will be negative x to the fourth, okay, negative 2x cubed, negative 4x squared, okay. And then you have, this is actually, what? This is actually, di ba ito? Wait. This one, this is actually this one, which is 8x minus x to the fourth. So, let me write here, minus the quantity of 8x minus x to the fourth. Okay? And then, you have this one. So, minus x to the fourth ulit. Okay. Minus, parenthesis muna or bracket, para safe. So, I have negative x squared that I'll distribute here. Which means I have negative x to the fourth, right? Negative 2x cubed. Okay, and negative 4x squared. And as you can see, I have that. Diba? I have that here. This one, negative x to the fourth minus 2x cubed minus 4x squared. Minus, yun ulit, negative x to the fourth minus 2x cubed minus 4x squared, which means maka-cancel yun. So, this will be cancelled. This is cancelled. This is cancelled as well. Diba? Tapos, you have negative 8x, positive x to the fourth, and negative x to the 4th, which makes x to the 4th cancelled also. So, ito. So, matitira sa'yo ngayon, negative 8x na lang in the numerator. So, let me write that as negative 8x, and then let me copy the denominator. That would be negative x times x minus 2 times x squared plus 2x plus 4. Okay? Which means, makakancel ko si negative sign. Diba? Tsaka si x. And that will give me an answer which is equivalent to positive 8 all over. Okay, this is your difference of cubes. So, pwede ko na siyang gawing, x cubed minus 8. Okay, and this will be our final answer. So, kailangan pag nag-solve tayo ng ganito, lalo na kapag fractions, kailangan maingat tayo, lalo na sa mga multiplication of polynomials, factoring, cancellation, kailangan maingat, lalo na sa sign, and grouping symbols. Okay? So, this time, after learning how to, or after reviewing again, how to add and subtract, we'll go to multiplication and division of fractions. So, of course, when we multiply and divide fractions, we make use of the following theorems we're in. If you have two fractions A over B times C over C, C over D, we simply multiply the numerator, so you get AC over the product of the denominator, you have BD. And again, the factors in the denominator cannot be equivalent to 0, so as not to make the answer undefined. Okay? If you have A over B divided by C over D naman, that means you have to multiply A over B. You will multiply this to the reciprocal of the divisor. So, your dividend times the reciprocal of the divisor, which means, magpo-proceed tayo sa multiplication as an answer. That's AD over BC. And again, okay, your B and C should not be equivalent to 0. Okay? With that being said, yan, we now have 5 examples on multiplication and division of fractions. So, let's do that. Okay. Let me write on a new page, multiplication and division. Number 1, you have x squared y minus xy over y squared minus 1 times y cubed plus y squared over x cubed minus x squared divided by y squared all over y minus 1. Okay, so the advice is, if you are multiplying or dividing fractions, make sure to simplify the fractions first. Lalo na kung may common factors dun sa mga fractions, i-cancel muna natin bago tayo mag-proceed with the operation, multiplication and division. Okay? So, ano pwede natin gawin dito? Dito, in the first fraction, common si xy. Second, factor that out. You'll be left with x minus 1. Diba? All over, y squared minus 1 is a difference of squares. So, you have y plus 1 and y minus 1. Okay. We multiply this with y cubed plus y squared. So, common si y squared dito. So, times y plus 1. Diba? Okay. All over, common si x squared dito. So, that would be x minus 1. Okay. With division, I can replace this with multiplication, but I have to reciprocal this. So, ang mangyayari, you have y minus 1 sa numerator all over y squared. Okay, and this is easier kasi kita mo na agad. With multiplication, multiply mo lang. Simply multiply all of this, and then eventually, cancel out what are the common terms that appear both on the numerator and denominator. Pero pwede namang skip mo na yung magmumultiply ka muna. Pwedeng diretso na tayo ng cancellation kasi ito naman, commutative naman si associative and commutative naman si commutative naman si multiplication. Okay? So, ano ba yung napansin natin? So, I noticed that you have an x in the numerator. So, makancel yung isang x sa denominator. You have an x minus 1. Cancelled. You have y squared. Cancelled. You have y plus 1. Cancelled. And you have y minus 1. Cancelled. Kung may natira man dito, ito yun. Di ba? May isa tayong x na natira. So, our answer, at saka pala y. Di ba? So, our answer will be y over x. Okay? Number 2. So, ganun lang. Simplify nyo muna bago kayo multiplication division, ano? So, you have x squared plus x minus 2 all over x minus 1 times, I have x cubed minus x squared minus x plus 1 all over x to the 4th plus x, okay, times x cubed minus x squared plus x all over x squared minus 2x plus 1. Okay, let's start factoring. So, for the first fraction, that would be, let's have x and x. It's positive 2 and negative 1, diba? Negative 1. Para you have negative 2, ang sum positive 1. Okay. All over x minus 1. So, dito pa lang kita mo na pwede ko na itong i-cancel. Diba? Times. Okay. Let's do this, since ito ay multinomial. Let's do this by, factoring by grouping. So, pwede kong i-group ito, tapos ito. Okay? So, mangyayari dito, I can factor out in the first group x squared, and then that would be x minus 1. Okay? Para mapalabas ko yung x minus 1 in the next term, kailangan ko mag-factor na negative 1. So, i-factor ko yung negative 1 na yun, para magkaroon ng minus the quantity of, and that would be, okay, that would be positive x minus 1. Okay, all over, common dito si x sa denominator, you'll have x cubed, okay, plus 1. Okay, and then the third term, common si x. So, you have x squared minus x plus 1. All over. You have here x and x. X and x. So, that's negative 1, para negative 2 ang sum. Okay, and then we can still further factor this bago tayo mag-cancel. So, I'll just copy x plus 2. Okay? Multiplied 2, I can factor out x minus 1. That would be multiplied to x squared minus 1. Okay? All over x. This is sum of cubes. So, pwede pa natin i-factor yan. Sum of cubes na yan. Take the cube root of each. And take the square. So, x squared. Pero magiging minus na. Minus x plus 1, di ba? Okay, square, product, square. Okay. Times, you have x times, hindi ko na kailangan, I do not need to bother myself in factoring this out because it would be impossible for me to factor that out because it's already prime. Pero mapapansin mo, yan, parehas na sila. So, mamaya makakancel natin yan. So, kung napakailaman, all over x minus 1, sorry, ano ba? Tama. X minus 1, x minus 1. Okay, so let's start canceling. So, ano makakancel natin? Obviously, yung trinomial cancel na. I have an x minus 1. That would be cancelled. Actually, your x squared minus 1 will be equivalent to x plus 1, x minus 1, diba? If you factor that out. And x plus 1, x minus 1 appears in the denominator as this one and this one. Which means, pwede ko nang i-cancel itong tatlong to. So, let me cancel that. This one, and this one. Okay, I'll be able to cancel x din. So, which means, ang sagot ko ay simply x plus 2 na lang. Number 3. Wow. Okay. Obviously, factoring by grouping na agad itong itsurang to, no? You have am plus an minus 3bm minus 3bn all over. You have am minus an minus 3bm plus 3bn. Okay, times. Am minus an minus bm plus bn all over am plus an minus bm minus bn. Okay, factoring by grouping lahat ng numerators and denominators. So, that would be, I can factor out what? I can factor out a times m plus n. Okay, I can factor out negative 3b times m plus n. Diba? Ito, di-divide mo ng 3b yung mga terms niya. all over, I'll factor out a ulit. So I'll get m minus n. Factor out negative 3b ulit. And I'll get m minus n. Okay, times. Let's proceed to the next fraction first. Try to factor the same terms na lang. So I'll factor out a. That would be m minus n. Negative b. That would be m minus n. All over, have a ulit, m plus n. Negative b. M minus n. And then let's proceed with, factoring again, common terms. So I have m plus n common. That would be multiplied a minus 3b all over m minus n is common. It will be multiplied to a minus 3b. And obviously, this will be cancelled na. The next fraction, I can factor out m minus n. So this will be multiplied by a minus b all over factoring m minus n. I'll be left with ang ipa-factor pala natin, okay, this is positive dapat. Negative b is m plus n. I'll factor out m plus n. Okay, and then I'll have a minus b. So, cancel ko si a minus b. Cancel ko din si m plus n kasi multiplication to. Cancel ko din si m minus n. So, in short, ang sagot ay positive 1. Di ba binigay ito sa calculus, find the derivative? Constant pala pag sinimplify mo. So, in short, 0 lang pala yung sagot. Pinahirapan ka pa nito. Kaya kailangan i-simplify the fractions or the functions first before we take their derivatives pag kung sa calculus nyo, no? Okay. Let's proceed to number 4. We magnify that. Okay, so I have x to the 4th minus 16 all over x cubed minus 64 times x squared plus 4x plus 16 x to the 4th minus 5x squared plus 4 divided by x cubed plus 4x all over x cubed minus 3x squared minus 4x. Okay, so let's factor that out. This one is a difference of squares. This one is a difference of cubes. So to factor, you have x squared plus 4, okay, and x squared minus 4 all over. This would be x minus 4 times x squared minus 4x plus 16, which means we just copy this kasi makakancel na siya sa denominator, diba? Common. Okay, so ang i-factor natin itong kabila. Okay, so as you can see, we can consider this a quadratic kasi pwede mo siyang gawing x to the x squared, diba? So, factors of 4 that produces negative 5 as a sum, that would be negative 4 and negative 1. Okay? Next, divided. So, that would be multiplied. So, ito yung factor natin. Common si x. So, I'll have x squared minus 3x minus 4 all over. Common ulit si x. Dito naman tayo. So, I'll have x squared plus 4. Okay. Let's try to cancel anything that we can cancel. So, I can cancel out this one already. I also can cancel x squared plus 4. Can cancel x. Okay, pretty much everything. Pwede na i-cancel sa x squared minus 4. Okay, so let's try to factor the remaining terms if we can factor them. So, in the numerator, you have x squared minus 3x minus 4. So, that's x times x. So, I need factors of negative 4 whose sum is negative 3. So, that's definitely negative 4 plus 1, diba? All over, I still have here an x minus 4. And then I have a difference of squares here, so, which is x plus 1 and x minus 1 if I factor that. which means I can cancel x plus 1 and x minus 4, and then my final answer will be 1 all over x minus 1. Okay? Number 5. Okay, last example for multiplication. You have x raised to 2n plus 1 minus xb raised to 2n all over x raised to 2n plus x raised to n b raised to n divided by, or let's just write that down as multiplied by, b squared x to the x raised to 2n minus x raised all over, I have x raised to n plus 1 b squared minus b raised to n plus 2 times x. Wow. Okay. Now, let's factor. So, here, common si x, diba? Because of that positive one. So, I'll factor x there. And then, I'll be left with x raised to 2n minus b raised to 2n, which results to a difference of squares. That's a difference of squares. All over, in the denominator, common si x raised to n, we choose the lesser degree, diba? So, that would be x raised to n na lang, okay, plus b raised to n. Okay, times, in the next fraction, common si b squared, tsaka si x raised to n. So, I will have this divided by this. I will get x raised to n. Tatandaan ha, subtraction. Kapag nag-divide ka ng x raised to 2n all over x raised to n, huwag mo ika-cancel yung n ha. Okay, ang ginagawa natin ay minumultiply, sinusubtract natin ha. Magiging x raised to 2n minus n yan. So, ang sagot natin, x raised to n. Okay, so that would be x raised to n minus 1. Diba? All over, okay, ano pang common natin? We have x is common because of this. And then we have b squared common. B squared is common because of this. Diba? So, factoring that out, that will produce what? X raised to n minus, cancel na si x. Diba ito? Cancel na si x. And then I'll have b raised to n. Okay? Let's check. So, cancel natin yung pwede natin i-cancel. So, obviously, I can cancel x. I can cancel b squared. I can cancel x raised to n. Okay, and then, this is a difference of squares. So, let's try factoring that out. So, that would be x raised to n na lang. Di-divide natin by 2. Kasi square root ha. Minus b raised to n. And x raised to n plus b raised to n. Okay, and then you still have x raised to n minus 1. All over, you have x raised to n plus b raised to n, this one, multiplied by x raised to n minus b raised to n. This one. Did I leave anything out? Nothing. So, pwede ko na i-cancel to. Ayun, ito ngayon yung sagot natin. So, our final answer will be x raised to n minus 1. Kailangan lang magaling na agad tumingin or mag-apply ng laws of exponents para madaling nyo makita kung ano yung ifa-factor nyo or kung ano yung common monomial factor natin para madaling mag-simplify or madaling mag-multiply, divide, or mag-operate ng fractions. Okay? So, we're down to the last topic, which is complex fractions. So, ano ba yung complex fractions? Naalala nyo pa ba siya? So, with complex fractions, fractions are considered complex if you have a fraction within a fraction. Okay? A complex fraction is a fraction whose numerator or denominator, maalin sa numerator or denominator, o kaya sila parehas, contains fractions. So, as you can see here, you have a main fraction bar here, pero may fractions ka dito. Main fraction bar, fractions dito. Okay? So, the best way to simplify such complex fractions is, first, to simplify the numerator, and then simplify the denominator, and then saka mo i-simplify yung buong fraction. By simplifying, that means, normally, since addition, di ba, you'll do LCD. Okay. Addition, subtraction, which means you'll do LCD. And then after taking LCD, we'll proceed with division of fractions naman yung i-apply natin. Okay? So, let's do our examples. Let's do our examples. Para matapos tayo agad. Number 1, you have a 1 plus a over b. Okay? divided by a1 minus a squared over b squared. Okay, if I simplify this, I'll have to take the LCD. That would be b. So b divide 1 times 1. B divide 1 times 1. That would still be b plus, I'll just copy a. Okay, in the denominator, I'll have a b squared. So, which means b squared divide 1 times 1. That would be b squared pa din. Minus, I'll just copy this, a squared. Okay. And then you will notice that this particular numerator here, I can factor that out because it's a difference of squares. Pero, simultaneously doing that, pwede ko nang, ano bang gagawin natin? Pwede na natin gawin tong b plus a all over b multiplied by, kasi division, di ba? So, divided by this, reciprocal ngayon nito. So, I'll have b squared all over, I'll factor this as b plus a and b minus a. And then, you will proceed with multiplication division. So, this will be cancelled. Sorry. B plus a. And then, b squared over b, cancel yung isang b sa b squared. So, this will be cancelled. And then, my final answer will be b all over b minus a. Okay, so ganun lang. Just take the LCD of each of the numerator and denominator and then proceed with multiplication division. Okay, so number 2. We have here an x minus 8 over x squared all over a 1 minus 4 over x squared. Pares to ng denominator. X squared divided by 1. So that's x squared times x. So that's x cubed. Minus x squared divided by x squared. That's 1 times 8. So you get 8. In the denominator, you have x squared. Okay. Divide 1 times 1. So you get x squared. Minus 4. Diba? And then we proceed with factoring ulit. So this is a difference of cubes. I'll factor that straight. So that would be x minus 2 times what? X squared plus 2x plus 4 all over. I'm assuming you know your factoring na, kaya hindi ko na masyadong ina-explain, okay? All over x squared. So this fraction divided by this. So I'll just multiply this by the reciprocal of this one, which is x squared. Which is x squared all over. Yan. Yung factor ko to kasi difference of squares yan. So you get x plus 2 tsaka x minus 2. Okay. In that sense, pwede kong i-cancel si x minus 2 and si x squared. And this is a prime factor already, which means our final answer is simply x squared plus 2x plus 4 all over x plus 2. Okay? So, let's proceed to number 3. Madali lang, diba? If you're well-versed with the operations na and the basic laws, then hindi na magiging problema yung simplifying. So, 1 plus b all over a plus b. So, we are getting a more complicated denominator na on the fractions that we have. Minus 3b squared all over a squared minus b squared. Okay. So, obviously, you get a plus b here. Okay, a plus b, divide 1 times 1, still get a plus b. Plus, we simply copy this. Okay. All over, I'll have a squared minus b squared. So, divide 1 times 1. So, I'll just copy a squared minus b squared ulit. And then, copy this as minus 3b squared. Okay. And then, I'll proceed with a plus 2b, simplifying this, all over a plus b, multiplied by the reciprocal of your divisor. So, you have an a squared minus b squared here, which is a difference of squares. So, ifa-factor ko na to. I'll factor this. Divide that by, I will have an a squared minus 4b squared naman. Okay, which in turn, pwede ko nang i-cancel alin, a plus b. Pero since may difference of squares pa tayo dito, let's proceed with factoring pa rin further. So that's a plus 2b times a minus b all over. This, if you factor that out, that would be a plus 2b times a minus 2b. Which means a plus 2b will be cancelled and our final answer will be a minus b all over. Kakopihan na lang natin, a minus 2b. Okay, and then we move to the last example, finally. Okay, so we have here 5 minus 2y all over 4 minus 2y minus 1 over y squared minus y plus 3 all over y minus 4 y plus 1. So, taking the LCD of each fraction, that would be 4 minus 2y. I'll copy the numerator. Okay, minus, wait, let me write that properly. Okay, proper na yan. 4 minus 2y. Divide 4 minus 2y is 1 times this. So, kaya kinapi na lang natin. Minus, sabi ko pag minus, parenthesis agad. 4 minus 2y, divide 1 times 1. That's 4 minus 2y. Okay? All over this denominator, which is y minus 4. Okay? So, y minus 4 divide y minus 4 is 1 times this. So, you get y squared minus y plus 3 plus, I don't need the parenthesis here kasi plus naman siya. So, y minus 4 divide 1 times 1. So, plus y minus 4. Okay? Simplifying, ito na lang. So, that would be 5 minus 4, that's 1. Negative 2y plus 2y. So, 1 na lang. All over 4 minus 2y. Okay, multiply that to the reciprocal of this. So, I get y minus 4 all over. Simplifying, you have what? This will be cancelled. Okay, and then you will get what? Negative 1. So, you'll get y squared, y squared minus 1. Okay, which means, simplifying, that would be y minus 4. Okay. If you try to factor 2 here, that would be 2 minus y. Okay, times y squared minus 1. If you factor that, that's y plus 1, y minus 1. Which shows that, wala nang common, di ba? So, we can simply expand na lang, or yung sagot natin pwedeng ano na lang, y minus 4 all over 4 minus 2y times y squared minus 1. That will be our answer. And there you have it, your complex fractions. Okay, so that ends this discussion on fractions. This is the chapter exercise that you have to submit through LMS. This is an 8-question chapter exercise. So this is the first 4. And then this will be the next or the last 4. So altogether, you have 8 questions to solve to test what you learned for simplifying or for fractions in general. Again, my presentation is from SlidesGo, the template I'm using. If you have questions, please feel free to post your questions in our group.